Okay, so we were on the last part of Geology of India, where we had to discuss the last division. If you remember, we had discussed about the Peninsular India, about the crotons, different types of basins that have evolved over the period of time. We discussed about the Himalayan ranges, what are the major regional thrusts, faults, a little bit about how it evolved. So plate tectonics also we discussed. So last in the series is the Indo-Gangetic Plain and the quaternary cover of peninsular India. Now you all, I hope, understand that the basement of all these sedimentation, when we are saying Indo-Gangetic Plain, essentially we are talking about the sediments, or in layman language, what we understood as soil. So, but everything is not soil. If you've read in your undergraduate classes, everything is not soil. We use the term sediment for it. That's the more appropriate term. So, when we talk about the Indo-Gangetic Plain, we are essentially talking about these sediments. And most of these sediments, they were deposited during the quaternary period. When we say quaternary, the time is 2.58 million years or so. So this is an aerial photograph where you can see the vast Indo-Gangetic plain spread out, and in the background you can see the bluish ranges, which are the Himalayan ranges. So the nearest one would be the Shivalik, then you would have Lesser Himalaya, and where you can see the clouds and perhaps snow peaks, we have the higher Himalayan ranges. So Indo-Gangetic Plain is located in the south of the Himalayan plains, as you know, and Banaras, where our university is located, is actually on the surface of the Indo-Gangetic Plain. So when we say Indo-Gangetic Plain, essentially we are again talking about three river systems here, or we are talking about the sediments which have been brought by these three rivers. So what are these? The Indus River, the Ganga River, and the Brahmaputra. So the Indo-Gangetic Plain is the resultant of sedimentation. Whatever sediments have been eroded by these rivers from the Himalayan ranges, largely. There's also contribution from the south. We'll discuss that further. But most of the sediment is coming from the Himalaya and it is getting deposited here. So that's the reason also why we have the term Indo-Gangetic. So Indo comes from actually the river Indus here. Indo-Gangetic, sometimes we add term Brahmaputra also to it. So it's the Indo-Gangetic plain. This particular map here shows broadly the divisions of the Indo-Gangetic plain. We can always divide the plain into different geomorphic units, and division is largely based on what we see, the differences that we see in the terms of sedimentation. Sediments are a little bit different. That also we will discuss. And also these divisions, they are separated by small ridges, sometimes depressions, sometimes faults. So we can divide them into different sectors, so to say. But actually they are part of one large entity called the Indo-Gangetic Plain. You know that Indo-Gangetic Plain is important. So far, the population of the region, not only just for India, but for the entire Southeast Asia, and it cuts across the countries. So we have about 500 million people living here whose sustenance, whose survival depend upon the both the fluvial system as well as the sediments that are continuously being brought by these rivers from the Himalayan ranges. Okay, so what do we see on this map? We see different sectors. So you can see there is 1A and 1B, which is the western and the eastern sector of the northern part of this plain. Then the central part also you can divide into two different sectors. Similarly, you can divide the southern part also into west and east sector, and then ultimately we have the deltaic division. So just for our convenience to understand this very large division, we have divided them into sectors, and people then work and try to understand the unanswered questions about this geological and geomorphic division. So let's start with how this Indo-Gangetic basin was actually formed. I'm using the term basin here rather than plain because plain is what we see in it today in its modern form. It's a vast leveled surface spread across hundreds of kilometers. But Indo-Gangetic plain is actually a basin, and as the term basin suggests, it's a kind of a trough, U-shaped trough, which was formed after the evolution of the Himalayas. So this particular cartoon summarizes. We've discussed all of this earlier as well. We have different ranges of the Himalaya in the north. This is part of the Eurasian plate here, and Indian plate is still subducting under the Eurasian plate. And we discussed about various thrusts. So what you see here represents the regional thrusts, MCT, main central thrust, MBT, main boundary thrust, and then the modern one is the Himalayan frontal thrust, where it is believed that in the modern times the Indian plate is subducting. Now, when Himalayas formed, this is a very large landmass, huge ranges, many rocks are folded, sediments have been folded. So this particular range created a great load on the lithospheric plate of the surface of the earth. When you place a large load on one part of the plate, what it does, just imagine, for example, I give you a sheet of paper and you take a huge pebble or a cobble and you place it on the sheet of paper. What will happen? It will create depression somewhere. So something similar happened when you created a huge mass of rocks or sediments were folded. That created additional load on the surface of the earth, and that led to the bending of this plate here, which we call as flexure bend. Just let me write the term here, maybe. Flexure, flexure bend or flexure basin. So our Indo-Gangetic plain is basically a huge depression that was created due to the Himalayan orogeny as the load on the lithospheric plate increased. And this plate bent, it created a flexure bend. So it will create a depression here, and there's a called a fore bulge also. There's a small bulge here on further towards the south. And that depression has actually filled up progressively through time and led to the evolution of Indo-Gangetic plain. So geologically speaking, it's a foreland basin which was created by the Himalayan orogeny. The second cartoon, we've seen this earlier also. So previously, when the ocean plate started subducting around 100 million years ago, we had the formation of volcanic arc or the island arc as your magma melted and erupted. So you would equate this with your Dras volcanics. And the area in front of this island arc is called the forearc basin or the foreland basin. So here is what you are seeing, the Indo-Gangetic plain in the modern times, just to give you a perspective that how it has evolved. Okay, so as progressively this basin was filled with sediments, we had sedimentation coming from both from north as well as from south. So Himalayan ranges, of course, we have so many big rivers, their tributaries, which were eroding these ranges, bringing in the sediment. But also there was some contribution from the south. We have our Aravali range, you have your Singhbhum area, Bundelkhand area. Some sedimentation was coming from the south as well. So it's kind of a mixture of sediments coming both from north and south, with dominance of sediments coming from the Himalayas. This is a cross section profile. I just wanted to give you a more visual picture. If you cut across the Himalaya and the Indo-Gangetic plain, what do we see then? In the north, we have this Himalayan ranges, We've studied different phases, different thrusts are there. And then this is your basin that was created due to the lithospheric loading. And somewhere it created the basin, and in the front it would create a bulge that I was talking about, known as the fore bulge. And somewhere there's a back bulge also. So this is the depression that we are focusing on its sediments, on its geomorphic features. So if we quickly summarize, okay, before summary, let's talk about what kind of sediments have been there. If we are able to drill deep through the Indo-Gangetic plain, we have not been able to reach at all the places, but I think in one or two places we have reached the basement, which is the crystalline rock. So the earliest deposit, both in the central and the western part of this basin, which are in front of the western and central Himalaya, are of Eocene age and comprise of marine sediments about 55 million years ago or so. Now, this forms logic. You don't have to really just simply remember it, because now you know that it was a four-arc basin in the Tethys Himalaya. So, when you have the Tethys Sea, you would expect marine sedimentation there. So, earliest deposits logically should be marine sediments, and that is what people have been actually able to observe. And then the next package that comes in, because you know that the Tethys Sea closed. So after marine sedimentation, of course, you should have fluvial sedimentation. So together we call it as the Shivalik group, because most of the sediments, they were brought in from the Shivalik ranges. Why? Because they are nearest to the Indo-Gangetic plain. And of course, then we can divide them into lower Shivalik, middle Shivalik, upper Shivalik. And that kind of division is uniform. And what I mean to say is, when I say lower Shivalik, the type of rock that you will be finding in lower Shivalik will always be same. It does not matter whether it is located within the Himalayan ranges or in the Indo-Gangetic plain. So we use a common term, Shivalik group, so that we know immediately what kind of rock is there. So if we talk about the sediments, essentially your Indo-Gangetic plain, it comprises of two sediments. The basement, which are the older sediments, are the marine sediments. Logically speaking, it fits the picture very well. We had, because the Tethys Sea there before, and then overlying sediment as the sea would have closed is those of the Shivalik groups. And Shivalik group, again, you can divide into mudstone, which is the lowermost, sandstone, which is the middle, and the upper part is dominated by the conglomerate. This division is same for the Shivalik ranges as well. So when you say Shivalik group, the type of rock or the lithology does not change. So mudstone, sandstone, and conglomerate are the top sequence in the Indo-Gangetic plain. Another interesting observation that you would see in the sediments of Indo-Gangetic plain, that the sediments are coarsening upwards. What do we mean by that? Coarsening and fining upwards. So say, for example, this is the basin here, and you have deposition of layer by layer sediments. So what sediments would get deposited first? The coarser ones. The bigger particles would get deposited first, logically speaking, and then it would go on fining upwards, then smaller, then smaller, then smaller. When we say coarsening upwards, it means just the opposite. That means you have the deposition of smaller particles, and progressively they start becoming bigger and bigger. So entire Shivalik group or Shivalik succession is dominated or characterized by coarsening upward sedimentation. And people have inferred or interpreted why this happened, because even if you take, say, again, a glass of water or a tub of water, and take a handful of mud, which has some pebbles also, sand also, clay also, and then you stir it and let it settle. Again, the coarser particle, as here finding upward sequence, is what you would see. So your pebbles will settle down first in tumbler, and then maybe your sand, then clay, then silt. But why this sequence is inverted? Why it is coarsening upward in case of the Shivalik group in Indo-Gangetic plain? That is, it was inferred that you know that thrusts were forming as the compression was going on. So MCT formed first in north, then you have MBT further in south, and then HFT. So progressively your thrusting was coming towards the south, and because the thrusting was constantly coming towards the south, your basin was closing, the distance of transportation was also closing in, and your the type of material that was coming in from the Himalayan ranges was much coarser in nature. So that is the reason that led to the coarsening upward sequences in the Indo-Gangetic plain for the Shivalik group. Okay, we can discuss this later also if it's not clear, but that's what it is. Okay, so we know that it's a vast area, huge area, Indo-Gangetic plain. It's not a very small entity. So it is expected that you will have differences. What we have just discussed is the overall or a broad characteristics of the sediments in this Indo-Gangetic plain. But you would observe differences, say, for example, if you were to dig a borehole in the western sector, then in central maybe, then maybe in the southern sector, and then in the eastern sector, you would observe differences. What are these differences? These differences are in terms of lithology. So you would see some changes in the type of sediments that are deposited. Fossils, Indo-Gangetic plain is rich in fossils, so fossils also vary from eastern to western sector. For example, somewhere vertebrates are found, somewhere invertebrates dominate. The kind of pollens that are there, they also vary. And of course, the sedimentary species or the kind of structures that water makes with the sediments as they are deposited. So there are differences. Of course, we will not go into so much of detail, but in case you decide to work in future for your research problems in this sector, you would observe that there are several differences. So another example would be that in the West, your fan conglomerate type of fishes dominate. That means in the western sector of the IGP or the Indo-Gangetic plain, the coarser gravels they dominate. We call it fan conglomerate. And as you move towards the east, they change towards the deltaic or the shallow marine kind of sedimentation. Okay, so to summarize its characteristics, it's in the south of the Himalaya. We have seen that it extends right across from Sindhu Delta or Indus Delta to the Sundarban region, which is the Ganga Brahmaputra Delta. And it's basically, they comprise of vast plain of sediment, the Indo-Gangetic plain. So time range, if we talk about, we have seen sedimentation right from early Eocene to the Quaternary period. And of course, the recent sedimentation is also going on. This also we have discussed. Outcome of it is the Indo-Gangetic plain is the outcome of rapid filling up of the foreland basin, which was developed post Himalayan orogeny in front of the Shivalik ranges. So as the basin was filled up with the sediment, the Indo-Gangetic plain evolved. If we talk about the general altitude of this plain, it's only about 30 to 100 meters above mean sea level. So altitude is not much, but the thickness of sediment is quite a much. So about 6 kilometers thick, 1 to 6 kilometers thick sedimentation has been found in this particular basin. And of course, then these are just the variability. So if you look in the southern margin, the thickness is pretty less. If you look at in the northern margin of the plain, the thickness is higher, thickness of the sediment. If we talk about the major units or the major geomorphic divisions of this Indo-Gangetic plain, you can divide it into 4 units. So, okay, we'll discuss these units in a while maybe. I wanted to show you first we talked about the sedimentation of Indo-Gangetic Plain, right? So we have marine sediments, we have the Shivalik group. How do we know that? This map, if you see, you can see there are small dots located on this map. These are the locations where people have drilled boreholes, they have taken out cores, and then they have studied what kind of sedimentation has happened in the Indo-Gangetic Plain. So these are simple logs just to give you an idea how people study the sediment cores. So these are the location names, different location names that were there on the map. And you see right from the bottom upwards, the sedimentation is getting younger. So the oldest would be at the bottom, youngest would be on the top. If we look at perhaps the oldest um, what should we say, the basement of the Indo-Gangetic Plain, it's again the crystallines, which is visible only in one sector here, and other boreholes could not go deeper. You know, the thickness of the sediment is varying, so perhaps here it was the thinnest. So the basement is of the crystallines, and then you have the sediments which are brought in from the Creton side, the Vindhyan range or the Aravalli range, the Bundelkhand region, and they largely comprise of quartzite, orthoquartzite. So Vindhyas, where you see the orange color, they are the sediments which were brought into the Indo-Gangetic Plain from the southern topography. And then after that, we have the contribution largely from the Himalayan sector. So you can see this contribution from the Himalayan sector is very thick. And they are alternate layers of shale, silt, sandstone, clay, what you would observe in fluvial systems. So if the fluvial discharge is increasing, you will have coarser particles like sand. When it is winnowing or it is decreasing, you would have finer particles like silt and clay. So largely Indo-Gangetic Plain comprises of the alternations of these silt, sandstone, clay kind of layers. Just to give you an idea, we've discussed this otherwise before in the slides. Okay, now coming back to the geomorphic divisions of the Indo-Gangetic Plain. So broadly, we can divide the plain into 4 units. So we have Pleistocene Varanasi terrain. This would be the oldest. Then we have the Bhangar terraces. Then you have the Khadar flats and Bhabar aprons. What are these? These are actually the sediments that we've just discussed right after the evolution of the basin, the Indo-Gangetic basin over which the sedimentation has taken place. And these divisions, they are the geomorphic names or how these surfaces appear on this Indo-Gangetic plain. So when we say Pleistocene Varanasi terrain, the oldest fluvial sediments, they comprise of gravels and loose sediments. They are dominated by iron or ferruginous concretion. Nodules are there, iron nodules are there. And then you have the sediments which make the Bhangar terraces. They are the older terraces here, and they are formed by the sediments which were deposited in the channels over a period of time, floodplains. They comprise of lakes, marshes, and again, you have considerable um, large concentration of gravels here. And then you have the Khadar flats, which are the again second generation of terraces of fluvial sediments. And lastly, you have the Bhabar aprons, which are nothing but the alluvial fans coming out of Shivalik, largely in last 10,000, 11,000 years, and they are deposited along the foothill of Shivaliks. And Bhangar terraces, you also find large concentration of calcium nodules. These are the broad geomorphic divisions of the Indo-Gangetic plains. And this is the map which is just showing us that. So let's see the dotted. Okay, let's start with the oldest. The marginal Varanasi plain here, the vertical lines that you see here. And then we have the two terraces, T1 and T2 here. And then you have the fans which are on along the foothills of Shivaliks. Okay, so this is how our geomorphic divisions of the Indo-Gangetic plain would look like. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the alluvial fans or the fans of the Indo-Gangetic Plain, which are a very prominent geomorphic features. So this cartoon here shows how these fans they have been deposited. So we have the Shivalik range here, we have the Himalayan frontal thrust here, and as the streams they are emanating out onto the Indo-Gangetic Plain, there is sudden drop in the gradient. There is sudden change in the slope, and that has led to the deposition of various sediment ranging from cobbles and pebbles that you can see in the pictures also, as well as the finer sediment comprising of silt fraction and clay fraction. Now, I don't know how much you know about the alluvial fan dynamics, but generally, what happens when alluvial fan deposits sediments is it's not continuous like a major river. So, you will have a pulse of sediment coming in as the discharge increases. It will deposit the sediment. Your proximal feces or the sediments which are deposited next to the source, they will be coarser because it is being carried by the water. So water would like to deposit the heaviest particles first. So you'll have large cobbles and pebbles in this region. And then as the stream moves further towards the south, the particle size will go on decreasing, which we call as the distal features. So silt, clay, sand will be deposited on the proximal end. And also you know that alluvial fan streams they are not very stable like major rivers, so it will change its course. It will move east, west, and that's why you have packages of coarse and fine sediments if you cut through a cross section. And that is also one of the reason why we see heavy flooding along these alluvial fans or the mega fans. Example would be Kosi fan. We see heavy flooding because this is a feeder stream which changes its course often. And if you go into the field, actually, you would see this behavior of the alluvial fan manifested in form of such alternate packages. So we have coarser package, it would have shifted its course and then probably deposited finer sediment, or it also could represent the higher discharge, and then slowly as it weans off, as the discharge goes down, the finer feces are deposited. Then the next pulse comes, and again it will be followed by the lower discharge feces. So these are some of the pictures how the alluvial fan feces would look like in field. Okay, this cartoon actually just summarizes how the sedimentation packaging has happened in the Indo-Gangetic Plain once the basin was formed. We don't need to go through this particular section. I've taken it from some paper based on their data. They have interpreted it, but just you need to concentrate on this cartoon and what we can understand from here. So if we start from the oldest again, we had formation of a basin, then we had sedimentation in form of floodplain, maybe some lakes were formed, marshes were formed. Then as the rivers they were depositing sediments, the sedimentation is never continuous in a river system. Sometimes a river would deposit the sediment, and sometimes it would cut through or incise its own sediment. That's how we have the formation of river terraces. So then the rivers would also incise or cut through their own sediment. Then again resedimentation would happen. When there is incision going on, there's dryness in the atmosphere, and then you have the deposition of aeolian sediments also over the fluvial sediment. So this alternate aggradation or alternate sedimentation, alternate incising, alternate cutting, and deposition of aeolian sediments at some places has actually led to the development of the Indo-Gangetic Plain. I just like this cartoon. I wanted to show you how there are phases of aggradation or sedimentation, then incision happens, then again sedimentation happens, and that's how we get the different packages. Okay, this is a section actually very close to Banaras in Ramnagar. I don't know, many of you might have seen this. I have not visited this in field, but I found this very interesting. If you actually go to Ramnagar, the cliffs or the banks of Ganga River, if you visit, you will see these alternate clay sand, silty clay, again silty clay, alternate layering, what we've discussed in the previous slides in case of Indo-Gangetic Plain. So you can actually go there and observe these bands of sediments. This is work by Professor Umakant Shukla. He's in geology department. I think he has not retired. He's still there. But they have dated also these sediments and then proposed when, under what climate scenario, the sedimentation would have happened. So this is the section here, and these are their ages. We don't need to go into ages. Just to show you that their section also, they have inferred that the bottommost package of sediment that was here, it was coming from the Vindhyan source. Red soil, red, the soils, they have red color. And the younger packages which are located on the top, they are dominantly of the Himalayan origin, and they are very gray micaceous sand. Okay, so I think I'll stop here and we will discuss and take doubts.